Hey there, welcome to episode 108 of Mike's Collection. I'm Mike, and the part of my collection that I'm going to be talking about today is just some of the new action figures I've gotten in the past month and a half or so. So if you've been watching my videos regularly, some of this might be a little repetitive because some of the stuff I maybe have shown you a little bit, but not in detail. Because just to quickly recap, generally what I do is when I buy a new toy, I bring it home, I open it up, and I show it to you. But beginning at the start of December, everything I was buying for myself, I was kind of setting aside, and I wasn't letting myself open it until Christmas. So for that month leading up to Christmas, I didn't really have anything new to show you. Then when Christmas hit, I had a whole bunch of stuff, because it was not only was it all the stuff that I bought for myself, but it was also the presents that I got from my wife and from my brother. And so yeah, I had a whole bunch of stuff. And I wanted to open it all up, but I typically like to be able to show it to you in the box before I do. But I didn't want to sit on this stuff forever, and I didn't really have time to do that video because it was so much stuff to show you, and I was more interested in doing my top 20 toys of 2020 video and stuff like that. So I put up a really quick video where I showed you all my new stuff in the box, but I didn't open any of it up, so I didn't really get to show you it in detail or give a little review, my 2 cents of these figures. So I think it was episode 105 where I showed you everything in the boxes, and so that's where you will have seen a lot of this stuff already. But yeah, so since then I did my best of the year episode. I also had my friend Matt on last episode, and that was a lot of fun. We did like a little split screen, so if you haven't watched that, I'd recommend you check that out. So yeah, I've got so many toys to review in this episode. I'm going to try and make it quick. So this intro, I'll keep it pretty concise. I'm probably going to show you, I don't really have the time to do the split screen where I record the whole episode like this and then go back later and record footage of the toys. So I'll do this intro and then we'll go and we'll show you the toys kind of close up. But before I do that, I do want to show you, there's a couple other things I've acquired since I shot episode 105. So I want to show you those items kind of in the boxes, and then we'll show you everything outside of the box. So I've got quite a few Funko Pops. So for example, here's She-Ra, so one of the Masters of the Universe Pops. She was part of a whole new wave of Masters of the Universe that came out. You can see them all on the back. So Skeletor, She-Ra, Grizzlor, Cobra Khan, and King Randor. So I got that whole wave of figures, except for Skeletor. That is specifically Terror Claws Skeletor. So it's basically just Skeletor in kind of a very specific, unique outfit. And I don't really need Skeletor in every outfit that he wears. So yeah, I bought the rest of those figures. You know what a Funko Pop looks like in the box. I'm not going to show you every single one in the box. So I did get these ones as well as a couple others. So you'll see some Funko Pops as we move on. I'm just going to show you one other one because these are toys that I literally bought yesterday. So I went to Toys R Us yesterday because I got so many toys for Christmas, but believe it or not, for like the last 2 weeks I hadn't really gotten anything. I do have some stuff in the mail that I'm waiting for Big Bad to ship to me. But man, when 2 weeks go by, after opening all that new stuff, I was starting to get that itch. I wanted to get some new toys. So I went to Toys R Us, even though there was nothing really I was looking for, nothing I expected them to have. But I thought, I'm going to buy something regardless. I'll find something. So this is the stuff I found. So I picked up this Derek Zoolander Funko Pop. Now, I'm a fan of the Zoolander movie, although these figures seem a little late to the party because that movie's very old at this point. And when these figures first came out, I picked up the Mugatu, which is the Will Ferrell character, because I thought he was funny. And then I picked up the other two when they went down in price on discount. Now this particular one, you'll notice that this is a convention exclusive from 2019. So our Toys R Us here in Canada, they stock a lot of the convention exclusives. And so they've had this one forever. They had a whole end cap full of this particular figure, which is Derek Zoolander as a mermaid from that one specific scene where he's talking about a commercial he shot. I think it was for Cologne or something, and he was like a merman. So, it's not essential to anyone's collection, but I always thought that was a funny scene. I thought it was funny that they made a Funko Pop of this, but because it was an exclusive, they were asking double the price. So this guy was like $20. It wasn't worth that to me, but he was marked down to half price, actually less than half, because he was $10. Funko Pops are usually about $15. So yeah, he was, for $10, I thought, sure, why not? I'll complete my Zoolander collection. So there's a Merman Zoolander. Now this one here is kind of weird. If you watch my videos, you know the kind of stuff I typically collect. Like Star Wars Black Series, Transformers, some Ninja Turtles, Marvel Legends. So this here is a Mego Ultraman figure. So this is like kind of an 8-inch doll with like actual clothing on there. Now Mego was a really popular brand of toys kind of before my time. When I was a really little kid, I had some of these Mego dolls. I had some Marvel ones and I had some Star Trek ones. I still have my Mr. Spock doll, which is the same size, looks kind of the same style. But I destroyed all my Marvel ones when I was little. Anyway, I occasionally buy figures in this format. It's not my favorite format because they're not super detailed. The cloth clothing is a little too doll-like. But I have a few of these. I have some of the Universal monsters like Dracula and the Mummy. And I just recently started reading the Ultraman comics published by Marvel. I've never been a big Ultraman fan before, but now that I'm kind of getting into it, it seemed kind of random. They had just this one Mego doll hanging on a peg, just the one Ultraman, and I thought, why not? I was looking for something kind of fun and different yesterday, so I grabbed Ultraman. So the packaging, it's kind of bland. There's not much to it. Picture of Ultraman on the back. But anyway, yeah, we're going to pop him open. We'll take a look at him in more detail in a minute. The other one I bought yesterday was this Marvel Legend Deluxe War Machine. Now this one I've seen around for quite a while as well, but it's a deluxe figure. You'll notice the bigger box, and that's because it comes with all these blast effects that you can put on the ends of his gun and on his feet to make it look like he's flying. And I really like War Machine. When I was a kid, I kind of considered War Machine more my character because my brother collected Iron Man, but I collected like War Machine and his team. He was part of Force Works, so I bought that stuff. So I always kind of felt I related more to War Machine, but I had a hard time paying $45 for this figure when all this extra junk that they were charging me the extra $15 for was just going to go in a spare parts bin anyway. So I just couldn't justify the price, even though I thought this guy was pretty cool. And I also have another War Machine figure. It's not as good as this one. I actually have two other War Machine figures, but this is the best looking one by far. And I passed on it multiple times. However, I watched a bunch of kind of best of lists last week as people were posting their favorite toys of 2020. This toy was on a couple people's lists, and I was like, I knew I should have got that. I went to Toys R Us yesterday. It was marked down to the price of a regular figure. So for $30, I thought, why not? So we'll pop him open. We'll take a look. I got another little stack of stuff here. So I got some more reaction figures. Now, with my reaction figures, I sometimes open them up. Like I'll slice the card and I take them out so I can play with them and show you them. But then I put them back in the bubble and I pin them on my wall. So I do that with my Transformers ones, but I don't do it with some other ones. So I got these two Iron Maiden ones. So this is the Iron Maiden mascot, Eddie. And these are from the albums Live After Death and Somewhere in Time, where he's kind of a cyborg. Now, I'm actually not a big Iron Maiden fan. I was when I was a little kid, and that's when these albums came out. I haven't listened to their stuff in 20 years, but I do love these kind of iconic images of Eddie, and I got all of Wave 1 of these figures. Didn't open them up. They're tacked on my wall up there. So I thought I would get these ones to add to my collection. I think they look really cool. So yeah, maybe we'll take a closer look at them, but they're not going to be outside of their card. So I thought I would take this opportunity to show off the card a little bit. What else we got here? So this here is Cara Dune, Star Wars character from The Mandalorian. This is her in her card. I'm not going to open her up. I'm just going to pin this one to the wall as well as a display piece. Now, why would I do that? Well, basically, I just got this Cara Dune figure for Christmas, which we're going to take a look at in a minute. So this is brand new to me. I just opened her up. Then I got this one a couple of days after Christmas. It's the same figure, just painted differently. I'm still getting used to this. I'll get this new light here. It's very bright, so I apologize for the reflection. But yeah, I figured this one, part of the appeal of this one is the really cool packaging. It's based off of the concept art that they show during the credits of The Mandalorian. So yeah, I think this one looks nice just in the packaging like that. So that's how I'm going to keep that. I think I showed you this one in episode 105. This is a new Doctor Doom Marvel Legend. This guy I'm also going to keep carded, at least for now. Because actually, I don't necessarily think the card is necessarily all that great as far as the artwork goes, but it is kind of nostalgic to the 90s Fantastic Four figures. But this figure is very similar to the figure that I got earlier this year, or sorry, last year, I guess. Yeah, it was really cool. I like this figure a lot, but I don't necessarily need two identical ones on my shelf, which is why I'm keeping this guy in the package, just to display it like that. I did show you these guys in episode 105. I wasn't sure if I was going to open them or not. At this point, I'm still not going to open them. So this is a brand new line of figures. I think they're called Marvel Legends Retro. So they're 3 3/4 inch figures with these kind of fun retro cards. So there was a couple. I think there was 4 different 2-packs. I got Spider-Man and Electro. Really nice packaging. They came in this kind of cool little mailer box. The 2 cards fit in there together. So yeah, I've looked at some videos and some reviews of these guys online. People seem to like them. They've got 5 points of articulation, similar to a reaction figure. Although they're a little, their limbs are a little bendy. I think the plastic is a little bit softer. And maybe I will ultimately open these guys up if I do get more of these figures. But if this ends up being just the only 2 that I buy, I think they probably look better just displayed on the wall rather than they'll get lost in my collection if I open them up and put them on a shelf somewhere. What else? Last thing here. So this is, again, I think I showed you this in 105. I bought this like over a month ago. This is Metalhead from NECA's Ninja Turtle line. You open that up, there you see Metalhead in there. And I'm going to open this guy up today. I've been sitting on the fence with it forever. I never intended to keep it sealed for display purposes, because this is not a good figure for display because you can't even see the figure. The reason I haven't opened this up is because I'm currently buying figures from 2 different Ninja Turtle lines. There's NECA's line, based off of the cartoons, and then there's Super 7's line, based off of the vintage toys. And both companies are doing Metalhead right around the same time. The Super 7 one, I think, looks better. It's got kind of chrome metal, so he looks more robotic. I just think that one looks more fun. However, that one's quite a bit more expensive. And I haven't pre-ordered it yet. I haven't pulled the trigger. I kind of like to wait to see till it actually gets released. And I see some reviews of it online before I decide to spend the money. Because it's going to cost me over $60 to get that one Metalhead figure. Whereas this one, I saw it here for $30, so half the price. And I thought, I'll buy this one now because I don't want to not buy it and then not end up buying the Super 7 one and then I don't have a Metalhead. So I thought, I'll buy this. Hopefully the Metalhead from Super 7 comes out very soon. And if I decide I'm getting that one, I will return this one to the store. However, you can probably only return something to a store for about 30 days or so. And I think I've kind of just passed that mark now. So I think I'm stuck with this one. Not that that's a bad thing. I think it's probably going to be a pretty great figure. But it will probably mean I'm not going to buy the Super 7 Metalhead just by default. Because I don't really need 2. And I definitely don't want to spend like $100 to get 2 of them. So there you go. Now I know I said that was the last thing before we moved on. But one other thing I want to show you. So I've been getting some of the Masters of the Universe Origins figures. This is a line of figures I've been hunting for. They've been very hard to get. They still are. I haven't seen any Wave 1 or Wave 2, but I have all that stuff on pre-order from Big Bad Toy Store. When I get them, the cards are pretty cool. Like, it's kind of that vintage Masters of the Universe exploding red rocks. It's neat, but I've decided to open up all my Origins figures, and I've been throwing out the packaging. However, with the larger figures, I'm going to throw these boxes out too, but I feel they're worth showing you in some detail before I throw them out, just because they're so cool. So this box here, so you can see it's open. I've taken Panther out of there. So Panther is the purple cat that Skeletor rides around on. And like, look at that awesome artwork. Like, that's original artwork that they've made for this packaging. I just think that looks so cool. You got like Zor, the bird flying there. The packaging kind of carries over. So it's like, it's a pretty big piece. You see Skeletor He-Man on Battle Cat, Castle Grayskull. Looks like Teela riding a horse there as well. Yeah, like, just really cool stuff. And then on the back, you get a different style of artwork. So where it was kind of painted up front, this looks a little more illustrative. But again, very cool. Castle Grayskull in the background, Man-at-Arms, He-Man, Skeletor. Just really cool stuff. It's a shame to get rid of this, but at the same time, I don't have room to keep all the boxes of all this stuff. So another one I got, this box is even bigger. But this is the like Sky Sled that came with Prince Adam. So again, the artwork here, there's Prince Adam on the Sky Sled. He's fighting Skeletor on the, I think the Roton, was that vehicle is called. You also see Trapjaw and Faker there on their own versions of the Sky Sled. You know, you got more artwork that carries down here with like some dragons or something going on here. Very, very cool. Again, Castle Grayskull and more of the side characters over here. You bring that around, so the artwork, you know, carries around the side here. On the back, another original image. So Prince Adam, Sky Sled, Skeletor, Beastman, Trapjaw, Man-at-Arms. Just great stuff. Really cool. Now, even though I'm going to throw this stuff out now, chances are, years down the road, I'll end up paying big bucks to get a book of all the artwork that I just threw out. Because I did that not long ago with the vintage Masters of the Universe toys. A book was published, this big, thick, like $60 book that showcased all the artwork from all the packaging. So that's a really cool thing to have, so I can remember all that vintage packaging that I threw out when I was a kid. So sure enough, I'll probably be buying a book someday with all this stuff in there. Anyway, so that's everything in the box. I've already wasted more time than I intended. So now let's take a look at everything outside of the box. Okay, so let's start with the Funko Pops. So first off, here is the Merman Zoolander Funko Pop. So you can see he's got that nice kind of reflective green paint for his merman body. And, you know, he's got his nicely coiffed Zoolander hair. He's got the cool little display base, so it kind of looks like he's swimming. And what more do you need to see? So there you go, there's Zoolander. I also got this James Bond Funko Pop. So this is Roger Moore from the movie Moonraker. So that's the James Bond movie where he goes into outer space. So that's why he's wearing this outer space costume with his little laser gun. And yeah, pretty cool. This here is Andy Bernard from The Office, as played by Ed Helms. Now you might be thinking, this doesn't look like Ed Helms or a character that would be on The Office. But if you're a fan of the show, you would probably recognize this from one specific episode where Michael Scott is planning on leaving the office as the manager. So he holds these kind of insane, silly competitions for all of the staff of the office to compete on who will be the next manager. One of the tasks that he gives them is to put on these big inflatable sumo wrestler suits and to try and, you know, sumo wrestle each other. So Andy puts on a sumo wrestler suit, and spoiler alert, he falls in the lake and floats off, trapped in his big inflated sumo suit. So yeah, this is a very scene specific figure. It's a pretty fun figure though. My friend Brian got me this for my birthday last week, and yeah, I like him a lot. So the rest of the Funko Pops I have to show you are all Masters of the Universe. So this is not the Burger King. This is He-Man's dad, King Randor. So this figure is based off of the vintage action figure. So he's kind of ready for battle. I don't have that figure. I never did. The only King Randor figure I have in my collection is this one. So this is a Masters of the Universe Classics. I guess I should prop this up a little bit. So King Randor had two distinct looks. This action figure here from the Masters of the Universe Classics line is based more on his animated appearance. So that's when he's just kind of chilling in his throne being a king. Whereas this pop figure based off of the vintage action figure is based more on his like ready for battle mode. So both are kind of cool, but considering I never had an action figure of like this look before, it's kind of cool to get that in a Funko Pop. So next up we have She-Ra. So this is the one that I already showed you inside of the box earlier. So she's got her sword, her shield. She looks pretty nice. I've got lots of She-Ra figures in my collection that I could compare to. But let me bring in this one here from Super 7. So this is the Filmation She-Ra. So this is based on her animated look. So you can see the comparison. Now one thing you might notice is how yellow her outfit is as compared to the gold of this figure. Now one thing that's kind of interesting about this most recent set of Masters of the Universe figures is if you look at one of the prior releases, so here's Prince Adam, and you'll see that it is labeled as Pop Television. So regardless of what television show it's based on, Funko takes all the Pop Television series and they number them. So Prince Adam is 992 from their television series. And that's how the previous Masters of the Universe figures were categorized. With this most recent set, so She-Ra here, you'll see it says Pop Retro Toys, and the numbering is much lower, even though this figure came out after Prince Adam. That's because Retro Toys is kind of a new category they've added. So I'm thinking the look is supposed to be different on purpose. So where the previous ones were based more off of the animated look, these newer toys are supposed to represent the vintage toy more so than the TV show. So a good way that you can see how that works, I don't have the vintage She-Ra toy, but I do have the recently released She-Ra Origins figure, which we're going to take a look at later anyway. But when you look at this figure, which is based off the vintage 80s toy, you can see how the Funko Pop matches up with her much more closely. It's got that yellow, the bright yellow gear. She won't stand up here, but yeah, so I just thought that was kind of interesting to note, that I do find that these most recent Masters of the Universe figures don't quite match up with the vintage ones. Like, it's not super significant. It's fine. I don't need them to make a She-Ra based on the TV show as well as on the vintage toy. But it is interesting that they would switch gears kind of midway through the line like that. So there you go. So there's She-Ra. Now this here is Cobra Khan. And I don't know if it comes across on camera, but this is another one where, like She-Ra, I think the plastic looks, it's very brightly colored. And it doesn't really match up with the previously released Masters of the Universe Funkos. This one does look like it's supposed to look more like the toy and less so like the cartoons or the comic books or anything like that. So he's very bright. He looks very much like a toy. But it's still a pretty cool figure. Now, I don't have a Cobra Khan to show you easily. I do have a Cobra Khan in my collection, but the only one I have is from the 2002 series, which I don't currently have on display, and I didn't really feel like digging him out of a box just to do a little side-by-side. But Cobra Khan is a cool character. The vintage one, you filled him with water, and you pressed on his head, and he sprayed, venom water out of his mouth. So that was pretty cool. And yeah, he's a character I never got in the Masters of the Universe Classics, which is kind of a bummer. But hopefully I'll be able to get him in the Origins line when they eventually do him. So yeah, pretty cool figure. Now this is Grizzlor. So he is a member of the Evil Horde. So he works for Hordak, and he usually fights She-Ra. He's got that Horde crest on his chest there, and on his boots, and on his armband, and wherever else he can fit it. He's got the Horde crossbow that all the members of the Horde would carry. And so yeah, Grizzlor is pretty cool. The vintage figure was a big hairy thing, like with actual fur on him, so that's why he looks so furry. I do have a furry version of Grizzlor, but the one I grabbed to show you as a comparison is this one here, which, like that She-Ra figure I just had out, this is based on the Filmation look. So that's why he's not hairy, because he's supposed to look like he stepped out of the cartoon. And I think you can see the disparity between these two figures. They don't necessarily even look like the same character. They look quite different. Then that's because, again, this is his look from the cartoon, but these current figures are not based on the cartoon. They're based on the vintage toys. So this one looks more like the big hairy one, which I don't have out right now. So there you go. Pretty cool figure. Again, the colors, though, are a little brighter. I would prefer them to be a little bit more muted. Now here is one of my all-time favorite Masters of the Universe characters. This is Buzz-Off, the Bee-Man. So this figure, he is not from the same wave as those other ones I just showed you. So this one is based more off of the show and not the vintage toy necessarily. So his colors, I think, are a little bit more muted. And yeah, I prefer the look of these figures. Now, I do have the Masters of the Universe Classics version of Buzz-Off to show you for a comparison. So you can see he captures the look quite well. He's got those big green kind of slit eyes, and he's got the axe. Even the translucent wings are pretty much spot on. They've got that kind of biomechanical look inside of them, the translucent yellow. So yeah, this is the Classics version, but I still do have my vintage version from when I was a kid somewhere. And yeah, he looked a lot like this. And Buzz-Off is a character I really wanted, but he was a convention exclusive, and I hadn't seen it anywhere. But my buddy Miguel got me this for my birthday, so that was a pretty nice score. So there you go. That's Buzz-Off. And I think I have one more pop to show you. So here is Skeletor on Panther. So, Skeletor, his head turns. Panther, so that's the big purple panther that he rides around on. So, pretty cool, pretty cute. And yeah, I kind of had to get this one because I previously got He-Man on Battle Cat. So these two, you can't have one without the other. Now, my only kind of complaint about these figures is that here in Canada, a Funko Pop is $15. These sets here are $40. I don't quite feel you get enough bang for your buck to warrant that price. Mind you, the box that these guys come in is quite a bit bigger, but still, like, it should maybe be $30, maybe the price of 2 Funko Pops. But whatever. I think they are pretty cute. I wish the figures came off of them, because I do have, another Skeletor and another He-Man Funko Pop. So if I wanted to display these, all my Funko Pops together, I'm kind of forced to have 2 Skeletors and 2 He-Mans in my display. For my purposes as a collector who just displays these things, it's not a big deal. But if I was a kid who actually played with these things, it's kind of a pain in the ass that Skeletor is, permanently mounted to Panther and you can't take him off there. But anyway, so there you go. Those are all my Funko Pops. So now we can move on to some action figures. One more silly thing to show you before I move on to the action figures is I forgot to mention that my friend Brian, for my birthday, along with the Andy Bernard Pop, he went to a thrift store and found me some of the Mr. Men Happy Meal toys that I've been collecting. So he got me some of the ones I've been hoping for, such as Mr. Messy, Mr. Daydream, Mr. Topsy-Turvy, and a couple of the Little Misses as well. So I got a whole bunch of extra junk packed in bags with these guys. But yeah, these guys were a nice score. So thanks, Brian, for those. So next up, I want to show you my new Reaction Figures. So Reaction Figures is a line that's produced by Super 7. And they are small figures, 3 3/4 inches. They have 5 points of articulation. So that means they only move at the legs, arms, and the head. There's no knee or elbow articulation. They're very simple. They're supposed to be like the Kenner Star Wars figures of the early 80s. So it's a really fun line. I buy a few Reaction figures here and there from various movie lines, but this Transformers line is the first line that I've decided to go all in on and I collect in full. So you see here I open all these guys up, but this is what I do. So here's one figure here. So you see this is Stepper. You get some really cool like artwork on the card. There you can see it in full. On the back, you see the other figures in the line. So I already have all of Wave 1 and Wave 2. So this is Wave 3, you'll see here. Anyway, so what I do with these guys is I like to pin them on the wall to display them like this, just because the cards are so nice. But I have been slicing the sides of the packaging so I can pop the little tray out, and then I can enjoy the figure like this. So that way I can show them on video, and I can pose them, and I can take pictures for Instagram and all that sort of stuff. So let's get this out of the way. And we'll take a look at the figures. So these 4 figures here, that is what is considered Wave 3. But first I want to show you these 4 figures, which I actually got between Wave 2 and Wave 3. So I guess you could call it Wave 2.5 or what have you. But this was a surprise announcement that came on Black Friday. So I ordered these on Black Friday. They came a couple of weeks later. But these are repaints of existing figures. And you'll notice they're all repainted in black. So that makes sense for a Black Friday sale. So the guy that I showed you there. So this is Stepper. Now this is a character I was not familiar with. But apparently in Japan, the figure of Jazz, who every Transformer fan should know who Jazz is, but there was a repaint of Jazz that looked like this, and they called him Stepper. Now, he was never released in North America. Now, just in the last couple of years, that character was integrated into like the kind of North American Transformers storyline. Except for whatever reason, they changed his name from Stepper to Ricochet. And I got a Ricochet figure just earlier. I think it was just 2020, maybe 2019 that I got Ricochet. So let me just bring him out here for a second. So here is Ricochet. So you see there, he's the black, white, and gold. He's got that visor across his eyes. And yeah, so this was my first ever Ricochet figure. He was a new character to me, so it's kind of interesting to be getting a Reaction figure of him already. But it's more a matter of, not that Super 7 was necessarily dying to make this character, I don't think. It's just, now that this character has been introduced to North American audiences, they had previously released this reaction figure of Jazz. So it was an easy repaint, and it fit in with their Black Friday theme to repaint Jazz and to give us Stepper/Ricochet. So I think that guy is pretty cool. The other one from this line here, so this is a repaint of a Soundwave figure that I already have. I didn't bother to bring Soundwave out for this review because you guys all know what Soundwave looks like. He looks just like this, except he's blue instead of black. So there is precedent for the black repaint as well. Soundwave has been repainted in the past as a black character known as Sound Blaster. There have been a couple of versions of him in the past, but here's the only version of Sound Blaster that I have. It's kind of hard to fit everybody in screen here. But you see, this figure was released in both colors, and I chose to buy it in the Sound Blaster color. So he's black with some red highlights. And so yeah, he's a pretty cool, a pretty cool repaint. That's a unique character. And so again, it made total sense for Super 7 to repaint Soundwave into Sound Blaster. And again, you'll see 5 points of articulation there. Looks great, moves great. I really like this one. Now, these next two Black Friday figures were kind of interesting because, this is a black version of Megatron. Again, I think this was a Japanese release, based on a vintage Japanese toy where the Megatron figure from the 80s was released in black. I never had that figure. I've never seen that figure. So I don't have any personal attachment to this look. I've got my other Megatron here, so you can see this was the original release in the kind of white-gray look, and they've just repainted it here with the black and a little more reflective silver on the face. So it turned out pretty well. And then lastly, we've got Perceptor. So this one and the Megatron, the packaging didn't have a unique character name. So these ones, they say Stepper and they say Sound Blaster. This one was just called MC, MC22 or something. Megatron was MC23. I can't remember exactly what it was, because they weren't unique characters necessarily in the Transformers mythology. But what's interesting about this Perceptor, I was really excited to get this because even though Perceptor, who is an Autobot that transforms into a microscope, he was always red in the cartoon and the comic books, and the vintage toy from Hasbro was red. There was another version of him in black, which was not an official character, but that's the one I had as a kid. So I think it was essentially a knockoff Transformer. But I always played with a black Perceptor when I was a kid, so I had a real attachment to this look. So I was happy to get this in the reaction figure form. So he's pretty cool. And what's interesting about him is I got this repaint before I actually had the original figure that it was a repaint of. That came in Wave 3, which I got a couple of weeks later. So here's Wave 3. Here's Perceptor in his better known red colors. Got the microscope on his shoulder. Moves his arms and legs. Oh, that swivels. I actually didn't know that until just now. So you can spin that around. Here is Blitzwing. So he is one of the Decepticon triple changers. So originally, the original toy transformed not only from a robot into a tank, but also into a jet. And he was paired with Astro Train, who turned into a train and a spaceship. Astro Train was released as a reaction figure in Wave 2. And so now we get him in Wave 3. This is my least favorite of the bunch. Not only is the turret of the tank it came out bent. I could probably fix that if I took the hairdryer to it. But on the vintage figure, the gun turret was connected to the top of the tank, which sat on his back. But for here, they just stuck it on the back of his head. And he looks like a Snork to me. I don't know if you guys know what the Snorks are, but they were kind of like the Smurfs. There was a cartoon in the 80s with these little guys that lived under the water, and they had these little hoses on their head, and that's what Blitzwing looks like to me here. So it's not a bad figure. He's got a couple of cool accessories, the gun, the sword, but yeah, he's okay. Then we've got Dirge. So this is one of the Decepticon Seekers. We previously got Starscream in Wave 1. I kind of expected that they would repaint Starscream and give us Skywarp and Thundercracker before we get one of the other Seekers. Because these guys, even though they all transformed as similar looking jets, These guys were called the cone heads, and that they had a different style of head. Their wings are on their legs instead of on their arms. So yeah, I was pretty happy that Super 7 gave us Dirge here instead of just a repaint of Starscream. And hopefully we get this figure repainted into Thrust and Ramjet before too long. And lastly, we've got Blaster. So this is the Autobot that turns into a Ghetto Blaster or Stereo. And yeah, he's got a couple of guns as well. Looks great. And yeah, I'm very happy with all these guys. So it's really cool to expand my reaction figure collection with all these guys here. Now, besides all of the Transformer reaction figures, I did get one other reaction figure from Super 7 recently, and that is this guy here. This is Skeletim. So the name Skeletim comes from, so he's basically supposed to be a skeleton version of Tim Armstrong, the lead singer of Rancid. So yeah, he looks pretty awesome. So the thing is, like, I consider myself a punk rocker. My favorite genre of music is punk. I like Rancid, but I've never been a diehard Rancid fan. So I saw this figure when it came out a while ago, but I kind of felt like, I don't know, a poser to buy a figure of a band that I don't really listen to. But I guess you could say the same things about the Iron Maiden figures. Like I said, I don't really listen to Iron Maiden anymore. I haven't for years, but I love the figure. And ultimately I decided this figure was just too cool to pass up. It's a connection to Rancid aside. It's a punk rock skeleton. He comes with a guitar. He's got like a bottle of beer there, a little Molotov cocktail that he can throw. And yeah, he's awesome. So I wish he doesn't hold on to his guitar super great. Like it could fall out of his hands. But otherwise, I really like the detailing on him with the rolled up jeans and the boots. I've actually, once I got this in hand and I liked it so much, I actually pre-ordered another version of this figure. They're doing a repaint with a different head sculpt. So it's the same body, but with a different head with more like Liberty spikes instead of a mohawk. And it looks pretty cool as well. So there you can see the packaging with Skeletim on there. This looks really cool. On the back, there's an ad for some of the other bands that you can get reaction figures of. So the Misfits, Agnostic Front. So yeah, with this figure here, I debated on whether I should open him up at all, and I was just going to pin him to my wall, completely sealed, the same way I do with the Eddie figures. But something compelled me to open this guy up and just fiddle around with him. So yeah, I'm glad I did because he's really cool. And I'll definitely be taking some pictures of this guy for Instagram and stuff like that. But I kept the package intact so I can tuck him back inside of there and I can still hang it on the wall for display. Now this guy is not a reaction figure, but I decided to lump him in here with Skeletim because I think it's the only other 3 3/4 inch figure I have to show you before we move on to the 6-inch figures. So this is a Sectaur figure from a Kickstarter that was done by Zika Toys. So they did Wave 1 of the Sectaurs. And so you see that's Wave 1. I already have Dargon, General Spydrax, and the, I think this guy's called Royal Guard, even though its name's cut off. So I don't have Manitor or Zack yet, and I didn't have the Skull Soldier. So I hope to eventually get them all. But my wife Vanessa got me this guy for Christmas. And I popped him open as well, so I cut the bubble. So you would never be the wiser. I could put this up on my wall, and he just looks like he's mint in card. But I did open him up, so I can show them to you guys. And I've got some disappointing news. Zika Toys recently launched a Kickstarter to do Wave 2 of these figures. And it didn't get funded, and it probably never will, because it looks like Zika has lost the license to do the Sectaurs. So Wave 1 is probably all we'll get. They do actually have a wave called like Wave 1.5 coming out, which has 3 repaints of existing figures, which I'm looking forward to, and I will get those as well. But yeah, it feels like an incomplete line since we're never going to get Series 2. So anyway, these guys come with a bunch of accessories. I actually don't have them on display here. I took them out of the packaging, but he does have a couple of little pistols that you can see there that holster on the side. One of my favorite features of these guys is the magnets in their feet. So let me see if I bring my lamp in here for a second. And really stay. Anyway, I just tried for several minutes to try and get this guy to stick upside down on my little circle light here. Unfortunately, the glue that holds these little magnets in his feet isn't nearly as strong as the magnetic pull. So when I attach him to and I try to hang him upside down from the metal arm, the magnets come out of his feet and he falls down. However, you can, like I said, I have some of these other figures and I was able to display them that way. I could put them on like the side of my refrigerator and they would stand like this. Maybe I just need to add a little bit of glue to help hold those in place inside of his feet. But anyway, it's a really cool feature. These are really cool figures. I love the sculpting and the detail on these guys. It's a real shame we're not going to get more of them. But if you have the opportunity, if you like what you see here, you can at least go buy Wave 1 and Wave 1.5 from Zika Toys and help support those guys. So yeah, really cool. Okay, so now we're going to move on to real Transformers, meaning Transformer toys that actually transform. So these are the ones produced by Hasbro. And I'm going to try and speed things along here because it never fails. Even when I intend to be quick, I end up going late. And yeah, this video is going long. So quickly, we're going to take a look at Trailbreaker. So this is from the Earthrise line of Transformers. So Earthrise is the middle part of their trilogy. First there was Siege, Earthrise, and now Kingdom. And I do have a couple of the Kingdom figures I will show you. But yeah, this Trailbreaker, he's really cool. He is a repaint of Hoist, which was a figure that I really loved that we got earlier in the year. There's a few part changes. Like for example, he's got a unique head sculpt. Like there you can see he's got like a face with a mouth and nose, whereas a Hoist here, he's got like the that kind of grill on his face. So yeah, really great figure. The only other Trailbreaker I had in my collection before was this one, which, was an okay figure for what it was. But I love that this one is much more Generation 1 styled. And yeah, so this guy here he's no good anymore. And yeah, I love this Trailbreaker. This here is the Decepticon Run-Amok. So this is also from Earthrise. And this was a figure I was really excited about. Like, he looks kind of simple. There's not much in the way of paint apps. He's just pretty much solid white with a little bit of gold highlights on him. But the thing is, like, these characters, so this is, like I said, Run-Amok, and he had essentially an identical, call him a brother, I guess, named Runabout, except he was black. So solid white, solid black. And these two characters, they were the focus of one particular issue of the original Transformers comic book published by Marvel in the 80s. And these characters really made an impression on me based on that one comic book. And I really wanted to get figures of them. I never did. And here's one of the reasons why. The characters in the cartoons and the comic books, they always looked like this, like really cool. But the toys in the 80s rarely lived up to that look, which is why I got rid of pretty much all of my vintage Transformers toys that I had when I was a kid. And actually, since I got this figure at Christmas time, I went to a local comic book store here. Every year, me and my brother go to a Boxing Day sale there that they have on December 26th. Because the comic book store, called Giant Robot Comics, they always have a buy two, get one free sale on every Boxing Day. So I went there, literally like the day or two after I got this figure, and they had the original Run-Amok figure there for $10. And I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to be doing a video of this guy soon. For $10, what the hell? I'll get the original figure so I can do a little side-by-side comparison. So here is the original Run-Amok figure from the 80s. So you can see he has this feature, I think, where you rev him back and he kind of popped up and transformed. So there are his legs, one big leg, one solid foot. His arms are literally this panel that folds out. You can't move them, so he can't like raise his arms to punch or anything. His face, no detail, so you can see how he would become a car very quickly, pops out. And yeah, so that is the vintage Run-Amok figure. It sucks. So this is why I didn't keep my vintage Transformers. So anyway, I liked this character. The vintage toy sucked. And then they have never made this character again until now. So this is the first Run-Amok figure we've got forever. And I think he looks fantastic. I love the way his head looks. Like where he's kind of got a partial nose and it's just his mouth that's covered. That's kind of different look for Transformers. Either they usually have a full face or they don't have like any facial features at all. So the fact that Run-Amok and Runabout have like a nose and then have their mouth covered. It's just kind of unique, and I really like the look of him. And he had a very good chance of making my best of list. Not necessarily because the figure is so great. It is a great figure, but it's just more the character. I was so excited to finally get this character. If the toy had a little bit more detail, he probably could have made that list. He's just a little too simple, and there was just so many great toys this year, which is why he didn't make my top 20. But regardless, really cool figure. Happy to have him. In case you were wondering what other toys I bought at Giant Robot Comics buy 2 get 1 free sale, I bought 2 more vintage Transformers. So I won't go into detail on these because these toys are like 30 years old. But again, this just gives you an idea of how crappy some of the vintage Transformers were. Like, this character turns into a double-headed dragon. Like, how cool is that? He should be awesome. And yet, when you turn him into a robot mode, like, look at his arms. It literally goes from that to, those are his arms. Like, how's he supposed to punch anybody with arms like this? His legs are just one big solid block. He can't kick, let alone walk or step forward. He's got these giant legs and heads and everything hanging off of him. Like, it's ridiculous. This guy, too. His arms are a little bit better. Look, those are reasonable. He can actually swing a punch. But look at all this junk just hanging off the back of him. He's got all these tentacles. His legs are just one solid block. It's like they were barely trying anymore. So yeah, these guys are kind of fun just to look at in a nostalgic sense. But yeah, they weren't great toys at the time. So thankfully Transformers are a lot better now. So next up, I've got Tiger Track. So this is another Earthrise figure, although he's not a regular retail release. He is part of a line that they call Transformer Selects. They're usually sold online only. If you've watched some of my prior videos, you've probably seen me unbox some of these characters. They come in like a very plain brown mailer box. They don't have any card art or any like bio or anything fun, which is a shame because some of these figures are really great. And no kid is going to want to buy this figure if they just see the brown box on a shelf somewhere. But yeah, I wish they didn't hide these figures away because some of them are really cool. So Tiger Track is not a character that I have any nostalgic ties to. He's not really an established character in the Transformers like North American lore anyway. So I believe he comes from a Japanese release, again, like some of the reaction figures I showed you. And this is a repaint of Sideswipe, who we got like about a year ago. And I think Sideswipe is a great figure. This is a really solid way to start off the Earthrise line. I just think he looks fantastic. And so because I liked this figure so much, I didn't really feel like I had a need for this character because, like I said, I'm not familiar with him. He's not featured in the cartoons or comic books. But I liked that toy so much, I thought, yeah, why not get it in yellow? And I'm glad I did because I think he looks just as good in yellow, if not better. So yeah, really cool character. Love him. Really cool. So there you go. There's Tiger Track. Now this is another Transformers Select figure that really surprised me. So this is Rotor Storm. Now it is based off of a figure from the 80s that I didn't have. It was a figure that was released kind of late in the vintage line, so he wasn't really featured in any of the media. I don't have any attachment to this character, and probably could have been a character that I could have easily have skipped. However, I thought, what the hell, I'll take a chance on him. He was a repaint of this figure here, Spinister, and I liked this figure quite a bit. So since I liked Spinister, not as much as I liked Sideswipe, but I thought, you know what, this is a pretty decent figure. I'll get a repaint of him. And I almost didn't buy Rotor Storm, partly because when I saw pictures of him online, he was exactly a repaint of this figure. Just like Tiger Track is an exact repaint of Sideswipe. They didn't change out any parts. They have the exact same head and face. So when they showed Rotor Storm online, he had this face, just painted in the new blue and silver colors. And I thought, you know what, I don't know who that character is. I don't even have much of an attachment to Spinister. So I don't know if I really need that figure. It was only when I learned that they actually, at the kind of the last minute, I guess, changed his face to give him an original head sculpt, that I thought, okay, well, I'll take a chance on him and I'll get the new repaint version of him. And man, am I glad I did. So my wife Vanessa actually got me this guy for Christmas. And I think he's awesome. Like, I like Spinister's face, don't get me wrong. But this guy's face, just that it's different, it makes him a unique character. And I think the colors on this guy are much better than on Spinister. He's just much more interesting to look at with the blues and the silvers and the pink. I love like the pink kind of glass there in his the cockpit, which is on his legs. The double-barreled guns with the yellow barrels. I think this guy's awesome. This was another guy that really surprised me, because when I started making my top 20 of 2020 list, I was like, man, is Rotorstorm going to be on my list? I didn't even know who this character was like 3 months ago. And now he's like one of my favorite toys of the year. He didn't end up making my list, partly because of that reason. I don't have the nostalgic ties. He's just a repaint of a previously released figure. But if you were even halfway considering picking this guy up, I highly recommend you do. He looks great, really cool figure. Very happy with Rotorstorm. Now next up, I've got a Quintesson. So this is a character that was featured in the Transformers animated movie that came out in, I want to say, 86. And what's crazy is these characters were very prominent, or this, I guess you could say this character or these characters. He's basically an egg with a bunch of different heads, and each head has a different personality. And this is specific. They just call this guy a Quintesson, but there were different types of Quintesson, and this one is technically called a Quintesson Judge. So basically, if you were on trial, the Quintesson Judge would judge you, and the different heads would spin around and say whether you were guilty or innocent or whatever. That was their whole deal. Now they're kind of weird looking, like an egg with a bunch of faces. Doesn't seem like the coolest thing in the world. And when I first saw these things as a kid, I was like, what is the deal with these things? And I didn't necessarily care that Hasbro didn't make a toy of this back in the day, because it wasn't something that I thought looked particularly cool to play with. However, after the movie, the Quintessons were featured pretty prominently in the later seasons of Transformers, and they play a pretty key role in the Transformers mythology in the decades that have passed. So it's crazy, but this is the first ever official Quintesson figure from Hasbro. I think they might have made one that beat this to the punch by a couple of months as part of the Cybertron line, which is not based on the Generation 1 Transformers that I collect. But regardless, this is definitely the first Generation 1 Quintesson we've got, and it's crazy that it took so long. So I really like this figure. It's silly, but like I said, it's so important to the mythology that I really like it. It doesn't do a whole lot. It comes with a little display base that you can stand him on. There's a little gun attached there. All the different faces come off. The lid comes off, and you can... I don't know. He does kind of transform into something. I don't know. I'm not too concerned with it. I just think this guy's cool. And yeah, there is a little hole there. Anyway, he does attach to this base, which helps to give him a little bit of height. Although I'm having a little bit of trouble with it right now. Anyway, there you go. So that's really cool. Now, I actually bought a third-party Quintesson several years ago, and I thought this guy was pretty cool. So he's got all the different faces. They attach, detach. He's got the tentacles. He has a display base that actually lights up. I don't know if it still works. Battery's probably dead in that thing. But anyway, this thing has been kind of the default Quintesson in my display for several years. And yeah, it's still cool. It's a high quality piece, but this one is a little bit bigger, and it's official. Oh, there you go. It's an official release from Hasbro. And yeah, I think it's really cool. I'm glad we finally got this thing. Now, not only did the Transformers animated movie introduce us to the Quintessons, but they introduced us to their henchmen, the Alicons and the Sharkticons. Now, we did get a Sharkticon toy in the vintage toy line, but we never got an Alicon toy. And again, this is the first ever Alicon ever produced officially by Hasbro. So that movie came out, like I said, 86, and here it is 2020, and we're finally getting a figure of these characters that were featured pretty prominently in the cartoon. So these guys served as kind of like, I don't know, the prison guards or the henchmen of the Quintessons. And they transform into an alligator. I'm not going to transform him, but you see how he's got this tail here. And if I pop that tail off, you can see he's got kind of an alligator head underneath there. So this is one of those characters where I like him in both modes. I don't typically care about Transformers alternate modes because I don't care about cars and planes and stuff. But when they turn into monsters and dinosaurs and animals, I think that's pretty cool. So this guy here would almost be worth buying twice, just so I could display one as a robot and one as an alligator. Now, just like the Quintesson, I wanted a figure of this guy. So several years ago, I bought a third-party version of him, which is an unlicensed kind of bootleg version. And so here is my bootleg Alicon. I like that this guy was bigger and a little bit more menacing, but he always was a little wonky. He felt a little cheap. And yeah, so I'm happy to finally upgrade this one with an official release from Hasbro. And even though this guy is kind of small, I kind of like the way he's a little short and stocky. It's probably more accurate now that I think about it, about how these guys were featured in the cartoon. I think they were kind of a little shorter and stockier. But either way, it's pretty cool. So there you go, Alicon. Next up, I've got Cyclonus. And now this is the first figure I'm showing you from the brand new line, which essentially just launched in 2021, maybe the last week or two of 2020. So this is the third part of the War for Cybertron trilogy, known as Earthrise. Yes. So the first there was Siege, then there was... Or no, what am I talking about? So then there was Earthrise, and then there was Kingdom. So this is one of the Kingdom figures. That's the third part of the trilogy. Now, why the name Kingdom? Well, it seems like it's going to focus on a lot of like kind of animals and prehistoric Transformers. So that's where we get the Animal Kingdom from, I guess. But Cyclonus here, he could have just as easily been part of the Siege or Earthrise line, because he just transforms into a Cybertronian jet. So yeah, it doesn't really fit in with the animal theme. But anyway, this is a really cool figure. I didn't know if I was going to get him or not, because I do have a Cyclonus figure in my collection that I was relatively happy with. This one here is quite a few years old now, but I liked it enough. However, even in the years since I got this figure, Cyclonus, I've become a much bigger Cyclonus fan. Partly because he played such an important role in the Transformers comics published by IDW in recent years. And so when I saw this figure, it is definitely an upgrade from this figure. Now, I don't necessarily feel the need to upgrade every figure every time they make a slight improvement, but because I became such a big fan of Cyclonus, I decided that, yeah, he was worth the upgrade, even though this was, a little bit more expensive than the average figure. This guy here was, I think, $40 or so. But, I would say he's worth it. He's big, he's bulky, he's got great articulation, great sculpting. I really like that head sculpt on him. He's got the kind of light piping. So if you shine a light through the back of him there, I might be able to do this here. Yeah, you kind of get that effect with his eyes, which looks really cool. So yeah, really cool figure. I'm really happy to get an upgraded Cyclonus figure. Now this here is the only other Transformers Kingdom figure that I bought when I saw the big display that my local Walmart had. So it had Optimus Primal, which is Optimus Prime as a gorilla. There's Megatron as a T-Rex. There's Cheetor, the guy that transforms into a cheetah. Black Arachnia that turns into a spider. Those characters are all based on the Beast Wars cartoon that came out in the 90s. That was more my little brother's Transformers. It wasn't my Transformers. I don't have any attachment to those characters. And even though I said I like when Transformers turn into beasts and monsters and animals, I like it when they turn into robotic-looking animals and dinosaurs, like the original Dinobots of the 80s. The thing with Beast Wars is the robots transformed into what are supposed to be, I guess, realistic-looking animals with fur and stuff, and that look never did it for me. So I'm actually kind of happy that I feel I can skip probably a lot of the Kingdom figures because they're going to be based on Beast Wars. Now this character here is a brand new character, and he kind of fits somewhere in between. So he's not based on the original G1 Transformers that I collect, like Cyclonus is from, and he's not based on the 90s Beast Wars. He's a brand new character. And if he was a brand new character that looked like the Beast Wars aesthetic, I probably would have just skipped him. And he kind of does, because he doesn't turn into a robotic animal, but what he turns into is dinosaur bones. So you can see here this T-Rex skeleton on the back. And I didn't know how I felt about it, but when I saw him, I was like, what the hell? I'll take a chance. I love dinosaurs. Who doesn't? And a robot that turns into a dinosaur skeleton is kind of cool. And so yeah, I can't even remember if I said this guy's name is Paleotrex. Anyway, I don't know much about him. I don't think he has much of a background. One of the things about him is you can break the pieces apart. He comes apart relatively easily, and you can use the parts to kind of make armor for some of the other figures in the line, which I guess is cool. I won't be doing that. I'll just keep him displayed like this. But one thing that's kind of weird is, so he's got this robot head, which I really like the look of. He's got his dinosaur head on the back there. But then he's got this little mask that comes down and gives him this creepy skull face, which is weird because it's not part of his transformation. It's just like an extra little piece that he has as robot mode. Yeah, it's very unique. So I thought that was cool. And that's probably the thing that put me over the top to buy this guy, to kind of just take a chance on him. And I think they're going to be making a couple other of these Transformers that turn into bones. And based on how much I enjoy this guy, I will probably pick up the other ones as well. So there you go. Now, this video, it's probably already over an hour. It might not be when I edit it down a little bit, but I think I'm going to call it quits right now, because as I look around at my pile of toys, I still have some Star Wars Black Series, some Marvel Legends, some G.I. Joe Classified, some Masters of the Universe. So yeah, I'm probably about halfway through what I intended to show you today, but I don't want to do a 2-hour video. So I'll probably be back in a couple of days with another video to show you the rest of my stuff. So let's wrap it up here with Paleo Trex. So I hope you enjoyed this video. And yeah, that's it for now. Okay, so that was all my new stuff from basically the start of December until now, which is like almost the end of January. So that's why there was so much stuff here. There'll be more stuff to show you soon. Like I said, I've got a box in the mail right now from Big Bad Toy Store. There's some pretty cool stuff in there. So we'll touch base on that. In my last episode, I had my friend Matt on here. We did the split screen. That was a lot of fun. I'm hoping to do a couple of more of those. I've got a couple of buddies lined up, I think, that will do those. So stay tuned for them. And yeah, I think that's it. So as always, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. And yeah, I'll see you next time. So until then, ciao.